Hello everyone, welcome to yet another tutorial. Today we are going to look at how to create a ball bounce animation in Blender. So we will look at certain principles of animation, which is timing, squish and stretch, and arcs. Alright, so you can see that the ball is bouncing, it is squishing and stretching, and it is also rolling. Alright, and we'll also look at how to create a scene which has depth of field, and there is an HDRi image based lighting in this. So let us create this from scratch in Blender. Alright, so we are in Blender and I'll delete the default cube and we'll go to add mesh UV sphere, go to object shade smooth, and we have the sphere. Go to the side view by clicking on this button here, and I'm going to move it up and I'm going to hit the N key and make sure it is exactly 1. Alright, now we need to texture map this, so we'll create a new material, call it ball, and I want it to be a ball bounce, so we will search for beach ball, and then I will add texture next to it. Go to images, and this one or this one will work fine. Okay, either of these, this one or this one. If you want a basketball which doesn't really squish and stretch a lot, so beach ball works better. Base color, image texture, open. On desktop I have created a folder for Blender and ball bounce, and I'm using this one. Okay, so if you go here you can see that the texture is assigned properly because of the way it is made, so you don't have to do much. Next step is to go to add armature, and then if you go to object properties, visibility, viewport display, make it in front. Alright, so we need this bone to be as big as the ball, so we'll make it 2, and then it squishes and stretches, so we'll make the scale to each as well. Alright, so now we'll assign the ball to the armature, so shift select the ball, shift select the armature, control P, parent it, and we're going to use with automatic weights. Alright, now we need to go to the constraints, and we are going to add a maintain volume constraint. I'll use single axis and Z axis, and volume is 2. So we get back our ball. Alright, so now what will happen is this object will move the ball, and then we will use the squish and stretch for the ball, and then we'll select the ball and we can rotate the ball individually, and you can still squish and stretch the ball. Okay, so that is the thing, that when the ball rotates it needs to squish and stretch in the right direction. Otherwise, if you don't have the armature, then the ball squish and stretch and rotation don't work. Alright, so that being said, we are ready to animate the ball now. So our end frame is somewhere like 90. Okay, so this is our area of animation. We will create our scene, so we'll add a plane. We want the animation to be captured by the camera, so we'll select the camera viewpoint camera, and I forgot to turn the camera, lock the camera to the view so we can rotate the camera. Alright, and then render settings. We're going to use cycles, and here I'm going to use 720 by 405. And for some reason 405 doesn't render, so we'll make it 406. Alright, so we know that the ball should start from here and end here. Okay, so we can set up the camera, so decide how things are going to get animated. We will move the ball to the left and up. Actually, we will move the camera a little down. Alright, so we'll move the ball up, and here it is, say, -6 and 4. Okay, so we will insert keyframe, and a keyframe is added. We want it at 0, so we will say start is at 0. Alright, so at 10 the ball hits the ground, so at 0 we will set a key there. At 10 this becomes, because we will turn this auto key on, so whatever changes we make here, the ball will animate. So the ball falls to the ground at 20. So here it is 4 units up. So after the first bounce, it becomes a 2.5. Okay, and at 30 it goes to 0. Okay. Then the next bounce is only 1. Then at 50 it goes to 0 again. Alright, and then at 60 it doesn't bounce at all. So we keep the key, and 70 also it doesn't bounce at all. So you can see that the ball hits the ground, bounce, loses the energy, hits the ground, loses the energy, no energy whatsoever. So at 70 I will move the ball here, say 8. Okay, and then now we get the ball bouncing and rotating. So what exactly happened there? We will look at the graph editor, and you can see that we have object transform for y and z. There's nothing for x. So we'll hide everything else, so you can just focus on these two curves. Alright. So the y only has 2 keyframes. One is at 0, one is at 70. So the ball is slow. So horizontal is slow, vertical is fast. So the ball is moving slowly, then speeding up. What we want is, because the ball is already bouncing, we only want to select one key. Then I will drag this up. So the ball is fast, and then it is slowing down. Alright, so if I hit the play button, it's fast, and then it slows down. Okay, I don't want it to go out here, so we will make this 7, I guess. only select one down, and then you can control these curves the way you want. So the ball is bouncing and then flowing. So this is one of the principles: flow in and flow out. So the ball, because it is already someone has thrown it and then it's hitting the ground, every time it hits the ground, because of friction, loses energy and then it comes to a halt. So that was our Z location. Now the Y location is where the ball is bouncing. Now you can see that the ball is not really bouncing, it is floating. You want the ball to bounce. So here, this is slow. The ball never slows down. As it reaches the ground, it speeds up. So we'll right click here, go to handle type and make it vector. So the ball is slow and speeds up speed, and once it hits the ground, it speeds up again, but the gravity is pulling it down, so it slows down. That's basically the idea. Vector, vector. And now you're going to get realistic bounce to the ball. Alright, so the next step is the ball rotation. So again, you can select the ball and look at the rotation. So this is the X rotation. So I will set the key at 0 and at 70. We will rotate it, say minus 360. So one rotation. Okay, and then what you can do is you can select this guy and then hide it here, so you can focus on the animation. And the rotation is not matching. In the end it does slow down, but in the beginning it's not looking good, because again it is slowing down and then speeding up. So if you zoom it, you can select this and go to view. There should be a way to frame selected, so you can see the curve. And like we did the other curve, we want it to go fast and slow. Okay, so the ball is, it looks more real now. Okay, so we are done with the basic ball bounce. Now we will add squish and stretch. So again, the principles of animation here are, if you deselect the armature, one is view frame selected. Okay, one is anything that moves in curves. All right, so the ball is creating a curve here. All right, it's not going V, but it's creating a curve. So that is one of the principles. Everything that moves forms a curve, slow in and slow out. So the ball is moving fast and then it slows down. The rotation is slowing down and then the movement of the ball is slowing down. Now we need to add squish and stretch. So at 10, it's going to hit the ground, and because of that, it's going to squish. So we will squish it, say 1.5. At 0, it is no squish. Okay, so it squishes. Here, no squish. At 30, it was 1.5, so we'll make it 1.7. Here, no squish. 2. Here, it will squish a little, say 1.9. 60, no squish. And 70, no squish. So no need for the key there. Okay. So again, if you hit the space bar, every time the ball is squishing. But what we want is one frame before it squishes. At 9, it should stretch. So I'll make it 2.5. One frame after, 2.5. Okay, and then those keys are added somewhere. I think I've hidden them. So to unhide them, to see armature scale Z. Okay, and then we can solo that one. So you can see that. Okay. So at 20, no scale. 30, one frame before. So it was 2.5. So we'll make it 2.25, I guess. 2.25. 40, no. 50, 2.1. 2.1, and then it doesn't happen again. Alright, so that's all bounce, push, rotate, everything in there. Okay, so if you check the animation, alright, so that's about it. If you select the ball, go to shading, we can reduce the roughness so the ball is shiny, and then we will add some objects. So if you go to edit, references, extra objects, an extra object mesh on, and then you will be able to add mesh gears, added a gear. Okay, and then I will drag this window around, view, viewpoint, top. So we will add things and see how they look in the scene. Right? So we have to plan. So this was in this area, moved up. Add mesh, what did I add? Round cube. The round cube was above the ground, away from the camera. Okay, add mesh, extras, wall factory. Added wall factory, rotate it this way, and and then now you need to make sure that your auto key is off. Go to timeline, turn your auto key off. You don't want any animation. Delete keyframe. And this was 90 degrees. Then we can scale it small. Move it back. place it wherever you want. Alright, so this is how you can add different objects, and we get rid of this light and we go to environment, click here, go to environment texture, and you go to look for HDRi images. You can go to HDRi heaven, HDRi skies, and look at what type of shadows you want for your object. Okay, I like sharp shadows, so you can use this one. Is nice for clouds. Alright, so click here. I generally use 2K because it's not very big, and I'm going to use this one, open image. And if you go here, what I will do is I will turn the viewport display 1 so it is fast. Now if you go to shading, if you go to edit, preferences, add-ons, turn on node wrangler. Alright, so what that will do is, if you go to world in the shading, if you select this and simply hit Ctrl T, it will add the mapping and the texture node that will allow you viewpoint camera. It will allow you to rotate. Alright, so you can get rid of that, and then you can look at the shadows and turn around to get better shadows. Okay, so we don't want the shadows in the front, we want the shadows in the back, so -60 perhaps. Then you can rotate this around to get longer shadows. There you go. So the image is really turning around crazy, but you can get the look you want. Alright, so I'm basically looking at the shadows. So something you can work with that. I don't want to spend too much time. So the last thing you want to do is add depth of field. So go to cameras, depth of field, and the distance. You can go to viewport and turn on limits, and this X should be on the ball, not f-stop but the distance. So the ball is now in focus, and the f-stop should be very low to get nice depth of field. So you can see that the gear and the things are out of focus. If you go to your render settings, you can reduce this to 32 and go to render image, and you can see this depth of field, shadows, and the ball is there in the scene. Okay, so you just move around and render out a few images and see what you like. So a couple of things you can do is go to denoising and turn the denoising on. Go to film, color management. You can look at, try to have different exposures, so play with this. under world you turn on ambient occlusion, and then once you turn on ambient occlusion you can go back and then change the way you want the contrast to look. You can go to your strength of the light and reduce it, and then for rendering the animation you go to this option here. Start frame is 0 and frame is, we ended up at 70 I think. Only render 70 frames, 24 frames per second is what I generally render. Here we use FF mpeg video, encoding mpeg 4, okay, encoding good, output high quality, and then output path, where do you want to save the file. Okay, select the folder where you are selling, give it a name, and that's about it. You can go to render animation, and it will render your frame number 0, then it will move to 1, frame number 1, and it will go on. Alright, so that's about it. Thank you very much.